Imagine this. You're at a family gathering. Your cousin is raving about their amazing new job, but their eyes betray a quiet desperation. Your aunt won't stop praising her picture-perfect marriage while her husband sits disengaged, scrolling endlessly on his phone. People are asking all the right questions, giving all the right answers, and smiling like their lives are flawless. It's like everyone's playing the same exhausting game of my life is perfect charades. And then there's that one person in the corner, quiet, observant, not antisocial, just tuned into a completely different frequency. They see through every false smile, every forced laugh. They're not cold, they're just awake. Let me let you in on something. Society conveniently ignores. The quietest person in the room is often the most perceptive, and sometimes the most intelligent. For decades, we've been sold a lie about introverts. They're portrayed as awkward misfits, shy background characters who need to be dragged out into the social spotlight. But here's the truth no one tells you. Introverts aren't avoiding people. They're avoiding pretense. Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist who first coined the terms introvert and extrovert, saw what most people still miss today. Introverts possess an extraordinary gift. They aren't just quiet, they're intentional. They don't waste their energy where it doesn't matter. And here's where it gets truly mind-blowing. Human interaction runs on energy, but nobody teaches you that. Every conversation you have either refuels you or drains you. Every social encounter comes with a cost. Extroverts? They're like solar panels. They thrive in sunlight, meaning crowds, conversations, attention. That's their fuel. Introverts? They're more like deep-sea divers. They carry their oxygen with them. They can go deep, but they need time to come up for air. Now think about this. Ever get that odd feeling when someone says the right thing, but it just doesn't feel right? Their smile feels forced. Their presence feels hollow. That's your inner truth detector. And for introverts, that detector is turned all the way up, always. They're not retreating from people, they're filtering for truth. They're not antisocial, they're anti-performance. In any group conversation, ask yourself how many people are truly connecting and how many are just performing. That's the burden introverts carry, constantly sensing, constantly processing, constantly distinguishing the real from the fake. Not because they're fragile, but because they feel too much. When an introvert chooses to stay home instead of attending a networking event, it's not because they dislike people. It's because they're consciously choosing to spend their energy where it truly matters. That might mean a deep, soul-nourishing conversation with someone who understands them, an evening immersed in creative work, or simply time alone to process the sensory overload of everyday life. This isn't social dysfunction, it's refined emotional intelligence. Carl Jung understood this dynamic. He knew that introverts possess a deep inward orientation that allows them to cultivate rich inner landscapes, develop nuanced thoughts, and maintain a grounded sense of self. They're not failed extroverts. They're wired entirely differently. Now let's talk about the performance trap that's draining society. In today's world, most social interaction feels like theater. People aren't seeking connection. They're seeking attention. They're not being real. They're being calculated. Every smile is PR. Every introduction is branding. And introverts, they see through it in seconds. They can tell when someone's showing up with sincerity versus when they're angling for something. They recognize real enthusiasm versus performative energy, true friendship versus a networking move, a conversation meant to connect versus one meant to control. That's not being judgmental, it's being perceptive. It's pattern recognition, built from years of quietly watching the world go by. And here's something every introvert needs to hear. Your instinct to avoid superficial interaction isn't a flaw. It's wisdom. Introverts wake up with a limited social energy budget. They have to choose how to spend it. 10 shallow conversations that drain them dry, or one meaningful exchange that actually enriches them. The wise choice is obvious, but the world keeps yelling, go out, meet people, say yes to everything, grow your network. Introverts, on the other hand, know something deeper. One genuine bond is worth more than dozens of shallow ties. One honest talk beats hours of hollow chatter. One quiet evening of reflection offers more than any loud room ever could. This isn't withdrawal, it's strategy. While others chase attention, introverts build depth. They're the ones who remember the important dates, the tiny details, the silent struggles. They're the ones who show up when it really counts. They don't just talk, they hold space for truth, for vulnerability, for depth. In a society that celebrates noise, introverts become the keepers of meaning. Jung called this inward focus a key to psychological maturity. While extroverts often seek validation externally, introverts learn to affirm themselves from within. They build resilience, develop personal clarity, and learn to define their value on their own terms. This inner strength shields them from groupthink, peer pressure, performative trends, and emotional manipulation. They are less reactive, more self-contained, and far harder to control. In a world addicted to approval and driven by insecurity, that's revolutionary. And here's something beautiful that's rarely said. Introverts are like quiet anthropologists of the soul. While everyone else plays the social game, they observe. They map human behavior, not from a textbook, but from experience. They notice who people really are when no one's watching. They decode the difference between performance and truth, between surface and depth, between noise and meaning. This makes them rare and invaluable. Here's the secret about introverts. While they appear quiet, they're actually absorbing everything. To observe deeply, you have to stay silent, not because you lack something to say, but because you're too busy listening. And when introverts do speak, people listen, because their words come from reflection, not reaction. Most introverts develop what I call a truth filter. They can detect inauthenticity in seconds. They know when kindness is genuine or when it's sugar-coated manipulation. They can tell when someone's charm is meant to connect or to control. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition sharpened through years of emotional observation. And because they can see through social theater, they often choose not to participate in it. They'd rather embrace real solitude than pretend connection. To them, being alone isn't loneliness, it's protection, it's clarity. It's the conscious choice to recharge rather than perform. That's why introverts seem picky about relationships. But here's the truth. They're not picky, they're precise. They've learned to guard their emotional energy like a sacred resource, investing only where there's mutual respect, not performance. Now let's talk about solitude, not as isolation, but as a creative sanctuary. Nearly every breakthrough in human history came from a mind that spent time alone, uninterrupted. Einstein, Newton, Jung. Solitude isn't a flaw in the system. It is the system for brilliance. When introverts turn down social invites, they're not avoiding people. They're choosing their deepest self. They're choosing quality creation over quantity of interaction. They're rejecting social inflation in favor of soul-level investment. And here's the part nobody sees coming. Introverts often hold incredibly high emotional intelligence, not because they're naturally more caring, but because they've been forced to study emotions to survive in a world built for extroverts. They read what isn't said. They sense what isn't obvious. They're emotionally bilingual, fluent in both words and silences. That's why they make exceptional partners, confidants, and teammates. They're not interested in emotional performance. They're here for emotional truth. They're the ones who give you space when you're overwhelmed and presence when you need to be heard. And here's a surprise you didn't expect. Some of the most powerful leaders in the world are introverts. Not loud, flashy ones, but thoughtful, measured, precise decision makers. Think Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Larry Page. They change the world not by dominating the room, but by understanding it. In a society addicted to noise, introverted leadership is a quiet revolution. It's not about charisma, it's about clarity. It's not about leading with ego, it's about guiding with vision. And guess what? The digital era is finally playing to their strengths. Remote work, asynchronous communication, meaningful online communities. These are introvert gold mines. No forced networking, No performative workplace banter, just depth, autonomy, and results. The pandemic didn't isolate introverts. It validated them. It showed the world that productivity, creativity, and connection don't require constant presence. They require intention. And here's the bottom line. Society needs introverts more than ever. In a culture chasing attention, they chase meaning. In a world obsessed with applause, they offer insight. In a time of endless surface talk, they bring depth. In a world obsessed with applause and external approval, introverts represent something quietly radical: inner strength. They're the ones who question what everyone else blindly accepts, who say what no one else dares, who notice when the emperor has no clothes and are brave enough to speak up. They bring depth where the world is drowning in surface. They are the quiet force behind transformative art, soul-stirring literature, and the innovations that actually move humanity forward. They don't just exist on the fringes of culture, they often build the framework everyone else depends on. Introverts aren't the issue with modern society, they're often the cure. So if you've stayed with me this far, here's what you need to remember about the introverts in your life. They don't owe the world an apology for who they are. They're not wrong for preferring one-on-one connection over loud group energy. They're not broken because they need alone time to recharge, or because they choose depth over noise. Their ability to see through superficiality isn't negativity, it's clarity. Their quiet is not absence, it's precision. Their solitude isn't isolation, it's recalibration. They are not lacking, they are navigating. Jung didn't describe introversion as a flaw, he saw it as a resistance against superficial living, forced cheer, and constant performance. His theory wasn't just psychological, it was revolutionary, a rebellion against the noise. So here's what this really means for all of us. Stop trying to fix the quiet ones. They don't need louder voices. They need to be heard. They don't need more events. They need more authenticity. They're not hiding from life. They're carefully choosing how to live it. Their social selectiveness isn't a sign of avoidance. It's a sign of discernment. They're not avoiding connection. They're avoiding pretense. And they don't need rescuing. They need recognition. If you're an introvert, know this. You're not behind. You're not weird. You're not missing the party. You're building a revolution from the inside out. So here's your challenge. Stop apologizing for being who you are. Stop draining yourself for people who don't understand your value. Stop pretending you're fine in spaces where your soul is starving. Choose quality over quantity in your relationships. Choose depth over distraction. Lead with substance instead of noise. The world doesn't need more performers. It needs more people who are brave enough to be real. And that starts with you. So if any of this resonated, like this message. Share it with someone who's been made to feel like they're too quiet. Because maybe, just maybe, we don't need louder voices. We need